Call to order. We need approval of 2 sets of minutes, and I believe you've distributed them, right, Liz? Both sets
Yes.
to everybody? Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve?
Second, Michaela?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call, Liz?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Hi, Randy.
Aye, Mark.
I'm Michaela.
Okay, unanimous. What else do we have here? Oh, Brett, I'm gonna stall, so
Fine.
you will have the benefit of Patrick here. I just wanted to update everyone on the fact that we got $1.3 million in the CDBG grant for Great Barrington, Stockbridge, and Egremont. And we have a report from Dawn. Bailey Boyd got the grant for us, and Dawn Lemon is the administrator. And they have they've had a good response because of the work that Dawn did from Stockbridge residents. And she's underway with, so there's about $250,000 of funds that have been distributed to our
How
people.
can people use these?
They can use all kinds of improvements to their house.
That's great.
Windows, doors, roof,
Roofs?
all the kinds of
And
good.
there's income guidelines?
Yes, it's 80, you have to fall 80% of the, you have to fall under 80% of the AMA, right, Britt?
Yep, that's correct.
Britt
Median income.
also does this.
And then at some point over time, people can work off the balance to the point where it's not.
Yes, the structure is, you get the money, they put a lien on your house. You have, what,
15 years, yep.
15 years if
You
you,
get fully
and
Yeah, depreciates each year.
depreciate. All right.
So by the end of 15 years, it's totally forgiven. If you sell or transfer, there's specific language in the lien that if you sell before the 15 years is up, you only owe a percentage back.
so it's, if you sell in 5 years, it's 5 over 15. It's forgiven.
Actually, yeah. All
So
right.
anybody. Anyway, that's been a terrific program.
Applications are open at this point?
No, they are, but she's pretty much, she's been working on this for about, well, at least 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
And she's appeared in town
Okay.
and she has more applications than they can service. But about 4 or 5, we should get 4 or 5 houses. They do about 15 to 16 in the 3 towns, and they work very hard. They don't have to. Correct me, Brett, I'll introduce you in a minute, but Brett also does this program. And you do have to, well, you don't have to do anything if you administer the program, but she tries to make sure that it's sort of as equal as she can.
Yeah, usually there's like an interlocal agreement. So like in our programs, at least recently, we kind of established how many homes each town will get. So I'm sure they've had an interlocal agreement with you as well. That kind of says you have X amount of money or percentage of money or homes. So,
Right. I would not bring up the fact.
yeah, it's all right.
We've had other experience. Anyway, it's a terrific program and we do need a motion to participate next year. They are going to apply for next year for the same 3 towns. And if we could get a motion, I will,
Motion to apply again next year for this program.
yes.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Liz,
Aye.
Jen,
Hi, Jan.
Bruce,
Hi, Bruce.
hi, Randy.
Hi, Mark.
I'm Michaela.
Okey-doke, it's unanimous. Thank you for that. And if you're interested, there's a meeting about next year's application on Zoom to talk about the program. So if you have an interest in learning more about it, are you involved in that?
No, I think that's,
Oh, that's their,
yeah, that's their meeting.
it's their meeting up with their clients. Anyway, so we have everyone here. Well, not Patrick. I'm terribly sorry.
Turn that down, turn it off.
I'm going to turn it off. Somebody, a friend of mine didn't like the fact that my phone never rings, so anyway, it will never ring right now. Okay, Brett.
Yeah,
This is Brett Roberts. He's here from the Berkshire Regional Planning. Are you a commission?
yep, commission.
Commission. And we do a lot of things with you. We've never worked with Brett. And Brett has another wonderful program. Do you think it'll be affected by the current president?
We don't believe so. These are state funds, so.
Oh, good.
These are a bit safer than the CDBG funds, which are a federal source, but, my name is Brett Roberts. I'm with the Regional Planning Commission. I'm a senior planner there.
Excuse me for interrupting, Brett, but are they state funds that is not dependent upon federal funds?
Yeah.
Yes, so they're,
Okay.
these funds are, and I'll get into this too, but these funds are designated by the state. They were, more funds were designated the affordable homes legislation that went forward last August. So these are all state funds, whereas CDBG funds are from HUD, the Housing Urban Development, and it's a pass through for the state. So it's a little bit different, but like I said, my name is Brett Roberts. This is much closer to home than I usually go because I live in Stockbridge. So I'm not, up in Florida or something in Berkshire County. We work in all 32 towns and cities in Berkshire County. We do a variety of activities. My focus is mainly on housing. I say about 50% of my time is the traditional planning work. So working on zoning bylaws, housing production plans, that sort of thing. The other half is doing a few grant programs. So we do also do the CDBG program in multiple towns throughout the county. We have a program in Sheffield right now that's almost wrapped up, and we have 2 programs in Beckett and Dalton. And then we have some applications going forward for next year as well. So it's a great program. I'm glad Stockbridge is getting some funds out of it. And I also run this other program called the Home Modification Loan Program. So I'm going to pass these around just for everybody in the room to have a copy. The Home Modification Loan Program is importantly a little bit different than the home rehab, housing rehab program. So Home Modification Loan Program is a $50,000 program for any modifications to a home to allow folks to age in place or for folks with disabilities to remain in their home. So if you're looking at a house, imagine, you're pulling up to the driveway has a steep grade, it's gravel, the walkway isn't paved, all of those things are eligible for this program. Once you're trying to get into the home, are there steps? Are the steps deteriorated? Can you go into the door with a walker or a wheelchair? All that is eligible. Once you get in the home, are the floors, as we know, a lot of old homes in New England, are the floors level enough to be safe for someone to operate a wheelchair or a walker, et cetera, in that home? We do a lot of bathroom modifications, changing that beautiful clawfoot tub that you had loved, back in the day to a more safer walk-in option. We also, kitchen modifications. We've done things as broad as installing AC for folks who might have severe respiratory issues. The big news recently is that this program can fund accessory dwelling units or ADUs. So imagine, for example, that you, maybe a parent of yours is starting to age and wants to be closer to you for care reasons. You can actually build an ADU through this program, have them live closer to you. Vice versa, perhaps you have a child who lives in the city or something, and you want them to move back to be closer to you for care. That's also an option to build an ADU for that reason. This program, like I said, is up to $50,000. Unlike the program we just described, it's not a lien, it's a mortgage. So it's a 50-year mortgage, 0% interest, deferred payment, which means you make no payments throughout the life of the loan, only at the very end when you pay back the principal. It's a 50-year mortgage or at the time of sale or transfer. So for most folks, 50 years longer than we're thinking, right? So the sale or transfer would then spur the payback of that mortgage.
So Brett, if it transfers for one generation to the other, that would activate the rebate?
That would activate. So if you were to transfer to your child for whatever reason, grandchild, other family member, it would, that would spur the.
Hi.
Hey, how are you? So where's the benefit?
Brett,
Yeah, so I.
is that true if the child that's basically taking ownership is the child for which you built the ADU that's living there with you, or is that still considered a transfer?
That would be true. So if you own the home, and you, you build the ADU for the child to move back and then they end up taking ownership, that would, spur the payment of the mortgage back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That answers mine too, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, when we're thinking about the benefit, I mean, if you're going to go out into the private market to get a loan to put up an ADU or something, you're looking at maybe, if you're lucky, a 6 or 7% interest rate. This is 0% interest for the life of the loan, 50 years. The only thing you ever pay back is the principal. So that's something that we think is an advantage. In addition, this is an income-based program as well. However, the income is 200% of AMI. So I don't know if it's in this brochure here. Never remember what they put where.
Yeah, Brett, I have it here.
Yes, so and it's pretty as well, I'll send these around. For a household of one, the income limit is $228,000. So we have not hit that.
AMI was 76 or so for one.
That's for the other program, for the housing rehabilitation program. This is 200% of.
No, but 76 cents per 150 something.
Is that AMI? This is AMI for the entire state.
152. Oh, really?
Sorry, yeah, so
Okay.
it's not Stockbridge's AMI or the Berkshire, the entire state's AMI.
Great.
Oh, that's good for us.
And so we've not had anybody meet that income limit. Those
Yeah, I
folks who come to us are on a fixed income of some sort. And the other thing I'll mention, there is an asset limit as well. So if you happen to own a second home, that would be counted as a part of your asset limit. And the asset limit's $175,000. Asset limit does not include anything like, your pension or your IRA or whatever. It's really just like your general savings accounts, maybe a luxury car that you have or a second home. Those are the kind of assets.
Would it be equity in the building, on the property?
No, so any primary building or home that you own, any primary car that you own, anything like that is not counted as an asset.
But what's
From
houses?
meme coins, does that count? From meme coins?
Can't possibly comment. What was that?
If you own a second home, is it the market value of it?
Typically, we do assessed value.
Assessed value minus the mortgage or?
No, just the assessed value.
So that really, if 175,
Yeah, I'll be honest, most people who use this program
don't have a
Have-
second
don't
home.
have a second home. So we haven't run into that issue, but we know that's an issue in the county, so we like to just prepare people for that fact.
So second homeowners can avail themselves of this?
They can, it would be.
It's unlikely they would qualify, right?
We'd have to have a
Yeah.
conversation about that.
How many second homes in Stockbridge are less than $175,000?
It's a great question.
I
Zero.
think this would be for local residents who don't have a second home.
Yeah.
It's only going to be our new trailer parks,
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I'm sorry if I missed this. Did you say you could build an ADU with these funds?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
so,
$50,000.
yep, and that can be detached or attached.
Yeah, up to 50,000.
Up to 50,000, which we know isn't going to finance an entire detached ADU.
No.
But we have had successful folks who've done ADU programs where they have a 1-car garage or a 2-car garage.
Mhm.
That because there's enough infrastructure in that garage before this program,
Right.
$50,000 actually does pay.
Cover
for the
much of it.
conversion. So, again, it's not right for everybody, and I would never say it is right for everybody, but it's definitely for individuals who want to stay in the, our big emphasis is this is for folks who want to stay in their home and stay in the communities they love, but just need a little bit of modification to their home to make that happen.
That's great.
Terrific.
That's program.
How are you going to publicize this, Brett, other than?
That's why I'm here.
So
Um,
so there's 32 towns that are that can avail themselves of this. And is there a Berkshire County budget in terms of what's in the?
No, so we're contracted for Berkshire County work through CDAC, which is the Community Economic Development Association. They are a subsidiary of the state. If we want to get into that detail. Our goal is to close 20 projects in the county a year. But we have not been told that there's a limit. So I think Worcester is close to like 50 projects a year. And they're just trucking along. So obviously ours is going to be a little bit lower, but we have no limit to how many we can close.
Is this new?
This has been going on for about 3 years. Berkshire County's portfolio was managed out of Springfield for a while, and the PRPC took it over because there was not really anything going on in Berkshire County. So bringing it more localized seemed. So that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Is there an income limit to qualified? Whereas if a parent wanted, throw it out there, say a grandchild to move home that was old enough to take care of them, could you put it in the grandchild's name so that you could get the full extent of the loan?
Yeah, it's a good question. So
Subdivide the property?
well, okay, so let's take this question first. So the purpose of paying the loans back, I would never try to, paying the loans back goes back to the state, the same pool of money than in the same project. So I would never encourage a situation where people are trying to get out of paying it eventually, but.
I was just looking at
Yeah.
the 50-year time frame.
Yeah, but I would always encourage folks when they're entering into this program to think about who's going to inherit this house and how can I ensure that they are given the best chance to enjoy that. If they came to us and said, I really want my kids to have this house for whatever period of time, I would say maybe that conversation that on the deed needs to happen sooner. And they're party to this mortgage so that it lasts beyond your life. That's an
Like
option.
you had a trust or something.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
And we've done
So-
that for folks too.
It's great.
So like with issues related to Medicaid, is there a 3-year look back on any transfer to the child or the grandchild before they apply for this?
Not that I know of. We're the ones who administer it and I have never done that. So we're not advised to do that by the state. So I don't believe that's the case.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions about?
How do you think programs like this, which are, maybe in the grand scheme of things, a little bit nice to have, are gonna fare with the sort of, budget cuts that are coming down the pike?
It's a good question. They just increased the funding for this program in the Affordable Housing Act that was passed in August.
Yeah,
There
that was
seems-
before.
Yeah, yeah. There seems to be, if I was the governor and I might have some housing, this is something that I think would be worth funding, but obviously I'm not in that position. All I know is that we have a contract right now and we're gonna get these loans closed and we've been told that we'll have a contract next year. So I can't really comment on the future policy of this, but for right now, it's a resource for the Berkshires that we should take advantage of.
Nice program.
Yeah. So our job is to spread the word.
Yeah, so I guess my ask for you would be, I will leave all these with you.
Great.
And you can keep them in town hall, provide them. I think when people are looking for housing options, one of the first things that comes up is their local affordable housing trust. And so if you know about the program, you can promote it. If there's other boards in the town that you think I should talk to, I talked to Councils on Aging, which I've talked to Kate here. I've talked to boards of health before. We work closely with Don Lemon to make sure that it's hand in hand with housing rehabilitation program as well. So in any way that you see fit to promote, please do.
Can I ask? Oh, sorry. I was just gonna ask, is this for, if the home that exists, is that for full-time residents?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the assumption is you're a
You're a full-time
primary
resident.
home,
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it explicit that second homeowners need not apply?
No, what I tell people is I would rather you send them to us and we have a conversation with them.
Great.
Than to assume they are eligible, because I've seen more than not, you are eligible, but some people assume they aren't, and so they never have a conversation with us.
Okay.
So if anybody's even close to being interested, send them our way and we can have a conversation.
I mean, there's a few seasonal residents that we know of who rent So it's conceivable that they might qualify because in this case, their extra house is going to be considered an asset and most houses these days aren't worth 175 grand or less.
Right.
So, it's just
But
that,
then there might be
it's an asset
some,
test.
some people who are
not asset.
like wanting to retire soon, who might be retiring here soon, but don't currently. So it's good for them to know about it. Okay.
It's definitely not. We had a situation in Lennox where that was kind of the case. They actually were putting their son on the deed. They were moving up from New York
Right.
officially, fully. And they were doing all that paperwork and they're gonna come back to us in a few months to finish this off. So,
Great.
definitely.
Most folks considering these changes have to get some kind of special permit. So in Lennox, it might be ZBA, in
Yeah.
Stockbridge, it's either the select board or the planning board. They all work with really a small group of builders, because we see them all the time in our meetings. And they work with a small group of lawyers.
Yep.
And I think that the number one target audience for this message is those builders, lawyers, and special permitting authority.
Yeah,
It should be a standard thing. By the way, did you know?
yeah.
You know,
we-
you're
Yeah,
here.
it's a great idea.
We've had
Yeah.
extensive outreach. The states had extensive outreach with all licensed contractors about this program in the
Yeah.
state. And then we've also done a lot of promotion around this program with local contractors. We have, I mean, as you all know, there's limited quality contractors. And we work with quite a few in our housing rehabilitation program that we run in other towns. And we promoted it there. If anybody has an issue finding a contractor, we have a list of contractors that we like to work with. And we know do a good job. And we're happy to send them your way. I did see for the first time an application come in and the estimated start date was August. And I thought, oh, wow, we're getting into that crunch. So,
Yeah.
that's just the nature of the game.
But
If,
real estate lawyers too, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They prepare all the special permits.
yeah, and the contractor is responsible for getting the special permits for these. So just like any, at least in my world, any
Yeah.
construction agreement, the contractor is responsible for that, not the homeowner in this case. But the homeowner obviously needs to make sure their contractor is getting the special permits.
If an older person brings a child onto the deed, are both incomes counted towards the,
Good question. Typically, it's the person living in the residence. Very good.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah.
Great.
It's, I mean, it's a fantastic program. So thank you.
I'd also be remiss not to tell you too, BRPC runs this program and obviously you already have a housing rehabilitation group you work with. But any other, housing questions that you all work with, we're happy even just to come to a meeting and talk about that. We've finished up housing production plans in West Stockbridge, Egremont, and some like lower level housing work in Monterey, New Marlboro recently. We kind of, whenever you need us to pop in, let us know and we'll be here to have a
And is
conversation.
CDBG also based on the resident rather than the collection of homeowners with the deed issues?
It's based on who lives in the home. So
So not who else might not know.
yeah,
Okay.
even, let's say two parents on the home and they have an 18-year-old kid living there, we do count their income as well.
Okay.
So
in terms of your guidance or consulting or assistance on matters other than these grants, if we're applying for any kind of state housing or infrastructure grants or whatnot, do you guys have some expertise in the area that you can help us with?
we are constantly applying for grants for communities in the Berkshires. We're kind of the one stop for that in most cases. I just was on a call this morning with Alfred about a grant, $500,000 grant. So we're always looking to help out in any way we can. Typically our grant writing services are free of charge. As long as there, we have some stipulations that if you get the grant, you involve us in the administration, but even just consulting on, hey, here are some grants to look for, we're happy to.
Well, we're looking at the one-stop program and they have an expression of interest section and then the actual grant
Yep,
proposal, which is pretty complicated. So you guys do those?
yep, we've done many one-stop grants.
Yeah.
Yeah, one-stop for growth.
So we can
Yeah.
turn, one of the frustrations that I think we've had is we're not ready to actually do a project yet,
Yeah,
but we haven't known or haven't been able to identify, is a better way to say it, a grant writer. And the alphabet soup of agencies that you
yeah,
only mentioned a few in this meeting, are things that we really need to retain. And if you have that ability, we need to meet with
yeah,
your people and see we're trying to do as much as we can. I mean, we're a volunteer board, so we're not working on
Well,
this.
and there are deadlines coming up this spring on the one stop.
Yep.
And I've been looking at it and some of the grants seem to be for planning and design and,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
You can just send me an email, we can connect you. It
All
might
right.
not be me working on this, but my boss, CJ Haas, was the city planner at Pittsfield for years and years, and he's a wonderful grant writer. We have 3 other people on our staff that do grant writing as well, so and we have money set aside to do this exact same thing with towns. So I mean,
That's great.
I think the one issue this grant round was the state was really slow at getting back to us on things. So we just found out we had a large grant come in for Sheffield to do some thinking about housing in their village center. Again, West Stockbridge we're working on right now with some grant money, Monterey. We're doing a lot in South County right now
Mhm.
around housing.
Mhm.
So,
Great.
We do need a new master plan here,
yeah,
and it isn't our purview, but it does affect what we need to do, and so
They just said Lee's.
yeah, we just finished Lee's. That
you
was-
just did leave.
Yeah, CJ did, and we've done quite a few open space and recreation plans around the county, so.
Remember stopping at their meeting, they're talking about that.
Oh,
Parks
good,
and Rec
okay.
Right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they're meeting in the other room, and they'd be very happy to see you.
Yeah, and you know, this is not a sales pitch by any means, but we typically are much cheaper than some of consulting firms that come out from Boston.
I would imagine.
They also do a great job, to be clear, but
I have a question, one last question. Is there gonna be some push this spring around seasonal communities?
great question. So
You know, I mean, it gives you the ability to preference municipal employees. You know, who gets to be in a lottery for housing is very much directed by the state, you know, and just while most affordable housing actually is people who grew up in this county, it still bugs people, you know, if your kids can't get into housing and somebody from Boston is, this actually lets you preference artist housing and municipal housing. And in addition, it lets you do some other things around, you know, building buildings specifically and only for full-time residents.
Yep.
And it just seems like every single town in this county can apply for seasonal community designation or accept it if they're one of the 8 like us who got it.
yeah.
And why are we encouraging this? Because I haven't read anything.
So here's the deal on that. So first of all, seasonal communities are, it was written by a state senator on the Cape, as you know,
Please.
which means that the Cape has a lower threshold than the Berkshires. And so a lot of towns in South County were able to automatically qualify, like Stockbridge, like Monterey. And some towns are just on the cusp, like Egremont, Sheffield, that are kind of just there percentage wise. However, the bill kind of confusingly named Berkshire Regional Planning Commission as this entity that could tell other towns that they're also seasonal communities, but we have received no guidance on, you know, what that looks like, what the programs look like. So there's not been a push because we have this EOHLC has not given us any information on how to go about this. And I don't think they haven't designated funds, they haven't designated guidance. They're just in the process of hiring a seasonal communities coordinator.
Yeah. But if you look at that job description, it gives you an indication of what you get if you're a seasonal community, which is money. You
Yep.
get money to build some of this stuff, but more important, you get money for roads and bridges.
Yep.
You know, because we get a lot more traffic than, you know, a 2,000 person town in, you know, Hampden County maybe.
So it's a great thing. As soon as the EOHLC tells us, we will tell you. Because I mean, there is a handful of towns.
So are we already?
No, we have to accept it in May, but nobody's telling us,
But no one tells.
nobody's making the pitch.
Yeah, and again, with many things with the Commonwealth, we are waiting eagerly. And that's what we can do kind of on our end,
But
unfortunately.
if people don't get it
Down the door?
What?
You can't beat down the door?
Our executive director is pretty consistently beating down the door with both grants and situations like this. So we
Just the town meetings are only 3 months away, and if we
Yeah.
miss the cycle, it's
Oh,
gonna
I
be,
know. Yeah.
you know, 26.
That's
It might be a good, I don't know, can you do that at town meeting? Can you tell people about these things?
No, the select board meeting.
That's a good idea.
it's also been in the Eagle, the Edge. I should get in the local Stockbridge news, but
Stockbridge
yeah,
updates.
updates, but
That's great.
Should be good. So,
Can I just say, I don't know if it's,
appropriate to ask this question, but there was a recent article in the Eagle about housing, affordable housing. It talked to the need to help people stay in their own homes.
Yeah.
And not necessarily build additional housing. Do you have does your organization have like that one?
Oh, an opinion. An opinion. We recommend things. We will kind of guide communities in conversations, but ultimately the power of that lies with the town. So we would never tell a town to do a specific thing necessarily. We can give the resources to think about and recommendations of how to move forward, but the power lies with the town in that. I know my boss gave a quote for that article that we definitely need more housing, and that's a real concern, but we also want to maintain the historic New England and beautiful environment we have here. So that new housing is going to look a lot different here than it looks in, on the Cape or in Boston or somewhere else. So yeah, I think ADUs are going to be a solution to that, but not the solution to that. It's going to be
You really think so? I mean, Lansing Great Barrington had strong ADU bylaws. And they built like 10 each over 5 years.
Yeah. The new Affordable Homes Act does open up some, potentially, if it all goes through, the grant options for ADUs. This is an option for ADU. It's not going to be the solution. It's not going to open up 10,000 housing units, but I think it can definitely open up some. I mean, we just finished a program in New Marlboro where we did this townwide survey of kind of what folks thought about ADUs, would they access ADUs? And a lot of people said they would not build an ADU, but 20 said they would. In a town like New Marlboro, 20 new housing units is a big deal. And so definitely not the solution, but it could be a part of the solution.
We have a lot of really large homes in Stockbridge that they don't have to do anything but incorporate just a portion.
I mean, and also around here, and maybe it's not right for the whole state, and we're only 1% of the population, but the fact that they allow this housing to be used as short-term rentals means it's not helping the housing crunch around here. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
if you can afford to put one in and you can get $1,000 a night, you're going to do it because it's good business sense.
Yeah. Is there a local bylaw against short-term rentals or like limits on short-term rentals in Stockbridge?
There's a bylaw. It doesn't have much, we're going to track them and it's very difficult to track.
It is very difficult to track. Monterey's in the same situation. They have an Egremont too, really. Yeah, you can say it's not allowed, but.
We did put we banned corporate owners except for LLCs, and we, professionally managed operators are banned in Stockbridge. So that takes the risk of these REIT type companies coming in here.
I think the ADU challenge too is that I think for some people, it's not like a lot of people I know, we all lived in New York City when we were 22 and we lived in a box, and it's you get very comfortable with that because it's what you have. So you're like, I know how to make this, trick this out and live in this and it's functional, Whereas I think a lot of people haven't had to do that or have not been exposed to that. And so living in something that's 750 square feet feels very, very small because people have a lot of stuff and have, consume a lot of things. And that is not, I think it can be a mindset shift that people might not, it's more than just moving into a small, it's a mindset, it's a lifestyle shift.
I think too, though, as we think about prioritizing young professionals and young people into communities, my first apartment was 500 square feet in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana, so that ADU would be a great starter apartment potentially for someone as long as it is a full-time rental. Right. But you're right, it's a mindset change. This isn't going to be for me to live in for 30 years. It's an apartment until I can afford something else. But that's a good point.
Anybody else?
I was going to say, this is a great conversation. Thank you.
You've been absolutely terrific.
Thank you. If any questions come up about this program, please let me know. You have my business cards, all these with the town, the board here. And if, like I said, if you have any questions about grant writing, other housing opportunities, please let us know. I know we have a pretty new staff at BRPC that's really dedicated to these relationships. So just be in touch.
Well, thanks for
Thank
coming
you
in.
so much.
Yes, Fred, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll spread the word.
If you walk down the hall, I think you might be well received.
The other end.
Patrick, you want to do CPC?
What's that?
You're on the agenda. CPC?
Yes, I figured you would have gone through it because I was late.
Nope, your name's on it.
All right, let's see, we got
By the
100.
way, before you start, congratulations, you did a masterful job. Thank you very, very much for representing us so well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good look at it. I think that, you know, when you have unpaid volunteers, you might as well thank them. And I think that we should thank all of our boards. I mean, this is hard work and it is often work that, sometimes has, kind of the buzz associated with it. So, yeah, I think that was a good meeting. That was a model for how boards can kind of communicate and not have turf wars and sort of, we're all part of one town here, so let's keep it that way. But yeah, so we had a great conversation, and then I believe it was Gary Pitney made the motion at 100,000, and somebody seconded it, and we got a recommendation at town meeting, which is not the money yet, for $100,000, and I think that's great. Obviously, we have some things coming up now too that we could actually help people, like the emergency rental funding, and and other things. So, I think we're getting started.
Polish your halo.
Yeah, no, I don't think,
You don't know where it is.
no,
Can I ask,
yeah,
so you're talking about the Community Preservation Committee
yeah,
representation, which you're a member of, right?
yeah.
And so is Liz.
And so is Liz.
Mhm.
I don't, I mean, in terms of how to acknowledge your role between, I mean, you're on so many things, between the select board,
Mhm.
Community Preservation Commission, affordable housing. I mean, it's like really amazing, very respectful.
Yep. If I was gonna give political advice to anyone, is get on the appropriations boards. Because, it's like, that's what, how we spend the money is basically often sets of priorities. And I certainly have, I admit it. But I will say this, that CPC is sort of a different animal because the community preservation is actually represented by the nominee of each board. So it's select board, it's Parks and Rec, it's not affordable housing, but it's a Conservation Commission. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of them that put a member on CPC. And we're actually expected to advocate for the boards that we sit on. So it's not considered a conflict. In fact, it's kind of the opposite of a conflict.
I wasn't suggesting that was,
Okay.
but I did want to ask a process question. So $100,000 will that be a warrant
Yes.
request that will appear before town residents for approval?
Every CPC article is independently approved. Yes. And I don't think in the last 20 years we've been in it that we've ever turned one down, but there could be a first.
It's a good program.
Okay. Mark, you're up.
All right. Well, we referenced the one-stop program earlier in the meeting when Brett was here. And just as a refresher, for anybody who hasn't been a part of hearing about this, the state has all this alphabet soup of places where you can apply for grants for infrastructure, for construction, water, sewer, planning. Some towns get grants to make a new master plan. Some towns have gotten grants to set up an affordable housing trust, and so there's a wide range of possibilities. And so the state, recognizing the complexity of this, especially for smaller towns where there may not be professional planners, set up a few years ago this one-stop program in the state. And what happens is that you can go to one place and they will look at a quick synopsis of your proposal, and they will ask a bunch of different agencies that might relate to that proposal to weigh in on it a little bit. And they can give you some guidance as to whether or not you have a good enough idea to pursue it through a full application. So it's a two-step process, excuse me, expression of interest, feedback from the state, and then if you think you've got a possible winner on your hands, you go to the full application process. And there are also other assistance they give you. There are webinars on the individual programs where you can go and see a synopsis of what they do and what would be a potentially solid grant application. There are office hours they hold. And it seems like they've come up with a pretty good way to help people work their way through this maze. So I've been kind of looking into it and looking for places where we might be able to, make an application. And I did one of the webinars today, actually, for a Housing Works proposal. It's a group called Housing Works. And they have funding. A lot of it is for infrastructure. It's not for construction, but it's aimed at the infrastructure needed to develop housing. And there is a special money set aside for rural communities, which we qualify for, and also for the, what'd you describe it, visitor places or the tourist? Seasonal.
Residents.
So they have actually two things where they have money set aside specifically for those areas. And we actually qualify for consideration under those two areas. So I just wanted to say that we have opportunities there. It's not an overall confusing blurry of things, but you can actually sort in on something and pursue it and get some guidance from the state. And as we heard today, the Regional Planning Commission can also help us and maybe even do an application.
I was gonna say, that might be a place to start.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I've been struck by is that there are a lot of grants for planning and design and things that it's not like you have to make an application to them when everything is all done. And it's like, can you give us something to build this thing or put this road in? There are parts of it where if you need assistance in figuring out whether it's a feasible thing to do, they can provide some grants for that. So for example, we're looking into the water possibilities, on the Glendale Middle area. You could put a grant application in to finance what it costs to finish up whatever due diligence we need to do on that property. And rather than pay for it out of the CPC money that is pretty much mostly what we have in our treasury at this point. We might be able to get some state assistance, or they might reimburse. If you have to do the work immediately, they might reimburse at a later time with a grant. So it may be a way to get some help financially for doing something we want to do, but would like to preserve our funds for actually getting, something substantial done. So that's sort of the latest on it. The only thing I would say, and again.
What's the date? Mark?
Yeah, let me get you the dates here, because
You gotta focus.
first time I looked at this, it was for last year. And then early on this year, what am I doing here? Okay, here we go. Thank you. I know I put a page in here with all the dates, so let me just bear with me for just a couple of seconds.
Mark, I'm sorry, while you're looking.
Yes,
I'd like to ask a question about what you stated in respect to looking at water
yeah,
for the Glendale Middle Road site, because based on my understanding of the previous couple of meetings that have been held by the trust,
yes,
the trust, in my opinion, is going to be moving away from the Glendale Middle Road site. And I think all of us who are here today, who've been here pretty consistently, kind of heard the same thing. So I wrote a email. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to read it because it was just a couple hours ago that I sent it. But I was very concerned with the characterization in a report that was prepared by the trust to the CPC, for example, regarding continuing its review of the site for water and possibly it was like design considerations. So the item obviously is not on today's agenda, but since you brought it up, I would really like to hear from the board about its intent.
okay.
We've been talking about it for a year and
Oh,
a
we
half.
can't. I mean, we can't talk about our intent though if it's not on the agenda. I think what was on the agenda, and what we did discuss, was that we were going to have our, come to Jesus or Muhammad or whoever you pray to, meeting that where we talk about the priorities for the town. And we said we do that in February or March. I think that that's the next step. I mean, we look at whether or not we should have accepted the land or not. We took this land in on the premise that we would explore whether we could build housing on it. And I think we have to go through at least some kind of process to get to the point where we actually make a decision. And it has to be made in the context of some of the other, projects we're working on. Tomorrow morning, I'm having breakfast with Hal, the guy from Pine Street. Jan had a conversation with him. Jan's up there. The last few days, just had a conversation with the Zabians about the industrial park. We're trying to figure out all of our options, but it's kind of.
Well, let me just say in response to that, without violating our open meeting agenda thing, since I made reference to this. I think we're still in the process of finishing our due diligence on the land. And, we have a comprehensive report on the sewer obstacles. We still have to get a good number on the water. And a lot of what I was discouraged at in the last meeting was the cost of the sewer per unit. And some of that depends on how many units you put in. And obviously the greater number of units there are, the more you can amortize those costs. If something was $140,000 per unit to deal with the sewage, I'd be like, oh man. Although people pay $50,000, $60,000 or more for putting in a sewage system in their home, so it's not an outrageous number, but it's still very high if we're trying to do affordable housing. But I think we need to complete the due diligence, which involves about the water. And then also, okay, if you can get water in there, you can do sewer, you obviously can do utilities, then what would the project overall look like? How many units would it be? What kind would they be? Then you can start to plug in the numbers we're getting on water and sewer and whatnot and say, okay, well, if you have 6 units or 8 or 10, what's the cost per? And that is what we would need to get down to. So I think we're still doing due diligence. I was discouraged about the sewage report, but
I don't think you were alone.
I mean, no, I think, but I recovered.
Aren't we venturing down the path of?
Yeah, I really have to stop the
Okay.
discussion.
All right, I just
But
wanted to be
but what you're
responsive.
talking about is about applying for grants. I think we should, and Patrick, your input would be valuable, but it seems to me, based on what Brett said, that maybe we should go, a couple of us should go and meet with Mark and the workshop planning.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely useful to apply for grants for these purposes rather than spend taxpayer dollars on it if we can get them, because regardless of which project we're talking about, that's great. That's great.
Right, but we can't, when it comes to grants, BRPC might write 2 or 3 grant applications a year for each town in the Berkshires. So it's important that this kind of work, if we're going to be venturing down to Pittsfield to talk
thoughtful.
about this, that is done in the context of Michael
Yeah.
and the team and what our overall priorities are. Because we don't want to lose a $5 million project for a bridge repair.
Right.
You get a $50,000, you know what I mean? We kind of
Yeah.
just have that conversation with.
Well, we should definitely coordinate. And I assume Michael is the one who is aware of all the different groups and what they're applying for. Is that fair?
Yeah, I just wouldn't get the ball rolling. This is what I mean about sort of it's one town. It's just,
What are the
we-
priorities?
We already have,
as a whole?
I think there's, for example, a limit on the number of one stop for growth grants any municipality can do a year. I might be wrong on that, but I think there is. It's like 2 or something.
Did you
So
run into that?
I didn't see that.
we just got to make sure that, that whatever the town's priority, highest priority is that we're doing.
I think.
I'm not saying we would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I saw that there was not a limit, but I could be wrong. I read a lot of stuff.
It might be a different
A
one.
lot of different times. I might have left this piece on the printer that I'm looking for. But anyway, the deadlines for the expression of interest for the grant applications are all coming in the spring up to maybe June 4th or so. So I don't know whether we're ready to do that under the deadlines you're giving us. But once you get past those,
Yeah.
then the
It's
state
the year.
agencies spend the summer reviewing all these things. And then like in September, they announce the grants. And, you know, that's after you're into the new fiscal year and whatnot. So a lot of the activity is going on now.
We should at least collaborate with Michael and see what he knows about who else is
Well, I
doing
would
things.
suggest we, at a next meeting, put an agenda item on for prioritizing possible applications. And that in the meantime, before that meeting, I would see Michael and see whether we're
Would you?
tangling our
Okay.
wires with his plans. And I will double check on the number of applications that can go in.
Okey-doke. Jan? Would you like to just give us, I know that we're moving slowly along, but
Well,
if is there an update?
yes, there is an update. So Andrea from Stockbridge Housing and I met with Eileen Peltier today to discuss the property at Pine Street. And we're going to arrange for Eileen and her colleague Matt to come down and look at the property with Hal. And she felt that she could do a fairly good job of on the feasibility of that before spending the $2,000 or $12,000 that the architect was talking about in terms of a feasibility study. She also is very knowledgeable about the kind of funding options if there is a feasible plan to go forward, which we all hope there will be. And so we'll be talking about that at the same time. I think, Mark, one of the things that she mentioned was that it may well include a one-stop proposal for that project. It's all
Yeah.
vague right now, but I think we want to be very clear about what the deadlines are and so on so that we can move forward. I think there is a board meeting of the Stockbridge Housing Authority on the 25th of this month. And so hopefully we can have the meeting with Eileen and Matt prior to that so that there can be a discussion at Andrea's board meeting about that property and whether and how we might move forward. So that's the update.
Andrea has seen, I think you told me Andrea's seen the property, so she has some sense of what the space is like and how it might be applied for their needs.
Yes.
And she's interested in continuing the
Yes.
exploration. Good.
There could be, for example, a planning and design grant for this that somebody could do a little study on the feasibility. And just for those who may not be clear on this is a property on Pine Street where the Waldorf School has been, and they're vacating. And there's some excess room in that property now that could be converted into housing, whether it's housing for workforce or housing for seniors with some disabilities. I think that's what you were looking into, Jan, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's different possibilities. They would all come under the rubric of kind of affordable housing, whether it's for the seniors or workforce, whatever. But anyway, my impression after looking at some of this stuff is that there are places getting grants to say, oh, we have an opportunity here, even though it's a privately owned building, to create some housing with it. We'd like to know about the feasibility of it and do some design sketches to see what's possible. And they'd be like, okay, that sounds good. We'll take 6 or 8 units of housing in Stockbridge and see what we can do to get it promoted. And so there may be a chance to get some funding to might be a slower process than we like, but that, you know, I mean, that's how it works.
Right. Okay.
Terrific. And do you, excuse me just a second, Nikki. Jan, did you feel that, did you have any conversations with Hal? Patrick said he's having breakfast with Hal tomorrow.
I've not had a conversation with Hal
Okay,
since our last
Great.
meeting.
so you're gonna
Yeah.
get us an update on where he is. Okay. Anything else, Dan, on this? Okay,
No.
sorry, Nikki.
I have a question. Do the grants give you money to actually buy this place other than doing the studies to find out if it's appropriate or how much it will cost?
So
Like the guy was talking.
there's always different sources of funding for different parts, but most affordable housing in the United States is done through tax credit financing. So basically, some rich guy puts in $1 million and gets $1.5 million tax credit. that's how almost all affordable housing is done. And in the case of Brushwood and Lenox, like 65% is federal tax credits. I think 15% are state tax credits. The other 20% is typically a loan, which the actual rents people are paying covers the cost of the loan. So people don't get free rent, so if they have to pay 30% of their income. So if they make 60 grand, they got to pay like what's 33 times 60, $18,000. The only thing that subsidizes the difference between the 30%, whatever's over 30%. And I thought, by the way, that housing article was really interesting about it is how Stockbridge is one of only 7 Black, and I don't mean Black racially, I mean like communities that are the worst ranked in terms of the severely cost burden, where 50% of people's income for the residents, not obviously the seasonal residents, but full-time residents, goes toward, mostly for home ownership, it's taxes. I mean, a lot of people own their house outright, so it's taxes, it's insurance, it's
Utilities.
it's a utilities, right? And the
Utilities are
mortgage if you have one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to look at here is kind of, the CDBG loans and the thing that Brett was talking about today. Everything is sort of the same story, is how do we kind of keep people living here,
Are you interested in activating the Main Street?
What's that?
Are you interested in also in activating Main Street with respect to bringing a population to downtown? That's been one of the
I mean, how though?
concerns.
I mean, 2/3 of Main Street's owned by Austin Riggs and the Red Line Inn. I'm glad they're both, premier
In terms of
institutions.
Housing
But
opportunities. I think there was mention of senior housing, senior units going in there, and I know Michaela, for example, has frequently talked about what are we doing,
yeah,
increasing the population so that we have a more active street front.
Yeah.
Street on Main Street, so.
There is isn't something in the Muse for sale? Is it just commercial property or some of it housing?
It's just a business. It's not a place for sale. It's just the businesses for sale.
But it's never bad to have an active Main Street, I mean, I think would be a total benefit of that project.
With respect to seniors, which I am.
Which I will be someday, hopefully.
It
Hopefully.
would be nice for those young people you were talking about.
Yeah,
Who don't mind living in a 750.
yeah,
Square foot,
space, yeah,
to, have.
to be so close.
access. Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. We're doing extremely well.
yeah.
We
Okay,
don't have to go for 2 hours.
I think another business we should mention, that there's a similar, if the town were to accept the seasonal community designation, which legally gives us the right to preference municipal employees, the missing middle types, artists, seasonal housing for artists and municipal employees. That's, I think, where the owners of the industrial park would be interested in working to add 20 or 25 units. That's the understanding. And, and there's zero interest if we don't have that designation. That was my takeaway.
does the select board have to put that on the agenda?
Not a select board thing. Can be us.
But we don't have authority to put anything on the town meeting.
Oh, the seasonal community. I thought you were talking about the thing at the industrial park. Yeah, no, that's why I asked them. I mean, nobody's getting any guidance on this. It's crazy.
But is it known that the town has to accept it
Yeah, there's
or
only two,
ask
there's
for
only
it?
2 members of the seasonal communities committee. The committee that's managing this for the advisory group for the state. It's only 2 from the Berkshires, his boss, Tom Matushko, and the guy from One Berkshire, John Butler.
There's another meeting scheduled in.
Oh,
Yeah, this
do you want to come, do you have a meeting?
they have a meeting here at 5:30. Brett's is right now.
Okay, well, we should get out of here so you can come in. All right, we got to have a
Next meeting date. but we
next
do need
meeting
to do
date and
that.
we're done.
Linda, on the roll on the agenda for next meeting.
We'll see if we have something to talk about. We'd be happy to.
Can you
is our
use it
next
as a forum to listen to additional concerns with
Did you-
respect to?
The word complaint, I heard you almost say. What's the next meeting?
Tomorrow? Wait, no, we need 48 hours.
We don't need it tomorrow. Okay.
How many weeks? 1 or 2?
On the agenda? Will you add it to your agenda?
Well,
If we have something, If we have something, we will.
I think it's important that we have, I think we've collected a lot of information on the project. It's an interesting opportunity, but it hasn't been completely sort of favorable to the reality of putting housing there. But I think to Mark's point, he wants to just sort of be diligent on it. And frankly, the conversation I want to have is we can't do 10 things well. We can do one or two things well. What is the biggest, most important priority?
If you're talking about water studies and design studies potentially, wouldn't that require discussion on your part to vote to
Oh, we're
do
not
that?
gonna, yeah, we absolutely aren't gonna.
We haven't done.
Do we need to schedule the next
No, we're not
meeting?
gonna have that, we're not gonna spend any money before we vote on it.
Okay.
Do we
right
need to
now-
schedule the next meeting before some deadline that Mark has for any of his submissions?
Well, if we do it in the next 10 days or so, we're.
Okay, Jan, do you want to suggest a date?
I would suggest in a couple of weeks.
Okay,
Um,
who's looking at the calendar?
I am. That's more than 10 days.
Yeah, we
If,
need.
if
it would
Mark
have to
needs
be
10
next
days, we could need to do it in less than 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, that's okay.
Once a month.
I think the first deadline on the expressions of interest is like March 25th or something.
Oh, okay. I thought it was in the end of February. So the 27th is a Thursday.
They have a select board meeting at 6:30.
Okay, how about the 25th,
25th?
25th, 26th?
Hey, why don't we, can we just go back to why we're meeting 10 days from now?
We're not.
Oh, we're not. Okay.
Well, we're trying to get a date, so
Okay.
suggest.
What?
Jan?
The 25th work for you, Jan?
Yes.
Of February or
Liz?
March?
February.
February.
I think so. Hold on, I'm going back and forth between calendars here. Yes,
Okay, yep. What day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Is that all right, Jen?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Tuesday, the 25th?
Yeah.
Yep.
Patrick, do you have, with all your meetings?
Happy to do it. It's,
What
I
time?
just think if we're meeting twice a month, it's a little lot.
Right, there's only conservation at 7.
Oh, yes, Liz is our wonderful.
4:30?
4:30, Tuesday,
25th.
25th.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
So
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye, Bruce.
Aye.
I
All right, thank you all.